So recently I've been ordered to apologize for my most recent rant on a topic that nobody really remembered.
What even is an Makela charger?
So I thought we could talk about one of the most popular forms of media nowadays. Let's talk about this. Anime. The thing that you either get or you look at and go,
what?
Anime is one of those forms of media that has an entire library of content that people could easily overlook. Its use of style, drama, music, characters, and story is something that is definitely unique to anime. Recently, the genre has actually picked up, with a lot of people actually willing to try it out. So, I thought that we could take a minute to look at some titles that I personally recommend. This isn't necessarily a top 10 list, more so just a list of random titles that I feel get overlooked. I will be including both series and movies.
Kayo Hinazuki.
A series that I hear no one talking about is Erased. This has a very strong start to the show. Once you watch episode 1, you will be hooked and want to know what happens next. The story is basically that a man has the ability to time jump. He can't control it happening or for how long it happens. That makes for a really interesting hook in my opinion. And after you see how it ends for episode 1, you're just going to want to know what happens next. The animation is extremely well done. Most animation in anime is well done, but for Erased, it just takes its time in my opinion. There's not these complex swooping shots that can make your head spin. I walked into this series not knowing anything or having heard anything about it, and I walked out with it being one of my top 20. If honestly you haven't watched anime or want a good place to start, I recommend you do so here. It's a good start to seeing how Japanese animation differs so much from American animation. One thing that a lot seem to forget about is that Nintendo properties received more adaptations than people seem to realize. Everyone knows Pokemon and the new Mario movie, but no one talks about how there was an Animal Crossing movie, or even that Donkey Kong show. But out of all of them, probably the best was Kirby. Kirby Right Back At Ya is a show I discovered on the Kirby's Dream Collection back on the Wii. It included 3 episodes on the disc. This was always a blast to watch, with not only its catchy jazz intro, but its loyalty to the source material. I don't think this is a show that someone would easily enjoy if they didn't know Kirby or had played the games, but if you're a fan of Kirby or the games or anything related to Kirby, there is a lot of love poured into this show. From the characters, the villains, or anytime Kirby even uses one of his copy abilities, it's done with this grand spectacle vibe to it.
Right back at ya.
I don't think any recommendations list can be complete without Studio Ghibli. Having been established in 1985, almost every single one of their films has been celebrated and praised by critics and fans alike. Except for you. A lot of their success can be attributed to one of their many directors, Hayao Miyazaki. The guy is 82 years old now, and he's still directing, with one of his newest films, How Do You Live, being his last. A lot of people point to Spirited Away as being their favorite. And while it truly is a piece of work, honestly, the one that I can't recommend enough is his third film, Castle in the Sky. Castle in the Sky is this great starting point for those interested in Studio Ghibli. Its American dub is really well done, with a ton of famous voices like Anna Paquin, Mark Hamill, and even Jim Cummings. You never really can go wrong with a movie from Studio Ghibli, but Castle in the Sky for me has one of the best stories told from them. It's well-paced, the characters are memorable, and extremely funny at times. This is the title that got me checking out all of their other movies, especially in regards to its animation. There's a lot where the paintings and the scenery are absolutely gorgeous. Castle in the Sky is just a well-done, well-rounded movie that will get you interested in Studio Ghibli's other works as well. I can't recommend it enough. Redline is one of the most impressively made, hand-drawn animated movies, period. It took 7 years to make this. There was over 100,000 hand-drawn frames of animation in this. This movie is made for people who love Fast and the Furious and Speed Racer. It's one of those movies as well that has gained a cult following over time. It's just a movie that has everything in it. Giant monsters, over-the-top races, all sorts of different species. Just having a shot like this makes the 7 years of development pay off. Not a second of animation is wasted here. Redline is something that nobody talks about, and it's a shame. Definitely give this movie a try.
Redline!
Cowboy Bebop is the greatest anime ever made, period. It's my second favorite personally though, but as in terms of its story being told, it's a 10 out of 10. I prefer more episodic stories told as well. And while there's a hint of a greater story arc here, it's pushed to the background until the end mostly. So every episode here is just focusing on one story, or how these characters get thrown into a situation because of the bounty. I recommend this to those who like The Mandalorian or Westerns. You're really going to appreciate this. It's only one season, so you're in and out. Its cast of characters are so iconic that they are still being celebrated today. If anime as a whole had a Super Smash Bros. Video game, Spike Spiegel is Mario basically. He is that influential. This is just another great place to start for those who just don't get anime or wonder where to even start. I cannot praise Cowboy Bebop enough. Steamboy is a long-forgotten movie from the director of Akira. I discovered this movie all the way back when Godzilla Final Wars came out in 2004. It was one of the movies that was teased in its trailers for the DVD. While not the greatest movie, it's severely underrated and hardly talked about. Its setting is really well done with this attention to 19th century detail, with steam being its main power for everything. Its soundtrack and art and character designs are incredible. There's this massive swooping shots and these big complex objects that have so much detail. While its animation isn't as impressive as Redline in my opinion, this movie reminds me of the simpler stories told back in the 50s or the 60s with anime. Steamboy is a movie you can find very cheap. Like I said, nobody talks about this movie. It's strangely been lost to time, it feels like. It's never really solidified itself as much as its director's other movies, Akira has. I think it could gain a cult following. It just needs to be discussed more. But Steamboy is just one of those other movies you could easily get into without knowing anything about anime or animation in general. Comey Can't Communicate is a slice-of-life anime with comedy thrown in throughout. It's mostly about a guy named Tadano helping out a girl named Comey make 100 friends. The only bad thing is that she has crippling social anxiety. A lot of the humor stems from the wacky situations and the crazy faces that the characters make. Comey has excellent animation too. I love that specifically in this, the characters are a lot more cartoony than most, with realistic backgrounds thrown in throughout. Also, the OST is excellent. Comey is a show that made me check out other genres in anime like romance, slice of life, and even comedy. These are genres not to look over. Some of the best anime shows come from these, and Comey is definitely one of them. I think a lot of people don't realize that Voltron is an American version of a Japanese anime, Beast King Go Lion. Beast King Go Lion is an excellent, classic episodic anime with a lot of twists and turns that you will not see coming. If you've watched Voltron, this is an entirely different animal. The story and how it ends, to even the characters, are extremely different. Definitely give this a watch if you have already breezed through Voltron. Speaking of classics, anime like Lupin the Third, Astro Boy, and Sailor Moon are usually what pop into people's minds as classic staples in the genre. And they're right. But out of all of them, Speed Racer takes the cake. Its animation and even its American dub is not the best, but that's where a lot of its charm comes from. Also, Speed Racer's overacting to the way he murders everybody on the track, it all feels cheesy, but with it, it has some of the most recognizable characters. Speed Racer isn't for everyone, but it was one that I grew up with like Voltron, so leaving it out of my recommendations would be spitting in the face of 8-year-old me. Megalobox has one of the best and strongest stories told in anime. It's basically Rocky mixed with real steel. The way people match up in the ring are with these weird things called gears. But our main character goes in without gear. Gearless Joe is an interesting character just going through life till the opportunity is thrusted upon him to compete at the tournament level. Season 1 is more like Rocky 1, while Season 2 is more like Rocky 4 almost. The boxing matches are brutal and are animated amazingly. They're chaotic, but they're not confusing. Season 1's ending is also pretty nail-biting and got me so excited to see how it would play out. Definitely give Megalobox a chance. Anime is one of those genres in film and television that there are so much content out there to ingest that you could talk about this all day. These are just a few of the television shows and movies that I personally enjoyed over the years. Now, is there anything that I'm missing?
Wealth, fame, power. Gold Roger, the king of the pirates.